Greetings, nerds. This is Cena Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Paul. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing well, very well, Sarah. Happy birthday.
Thank you. This is my first time recording on my birthday.
I know. We recorded around your birthday, but it's actually, I'm really, it's awesome to be able to actually wish you one here live on the podcast.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, today, honestly, nothing special happened.
I know. That's the thing about having a birthday in the middle of the work week, but
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Tuesday, it's not Wednesday. I wish it was Wednesday night. But yeah, it's just it's but then again, my birthday, I've never really done anything special. I was thinking about it. Even when I've taken off for it, I've just slept in. That's it. That's my treat. I'm really boring. And I like don't like being the center of attention, so I shy away from festivities that are about me. I'm like, oh dear Lord, my poor mom. She tries so hard. She's like, no, it's not gonna ever happen.
Yeah, she does. But we do it because we care.
Yeah. Well, it's the polite thing to do. Oh man. Okay. So on to, I don't know, not so great news. You told me you wanted to rant about the Flash. It's the Flash. So go ahead. I didn't want.
No, I mean, just mainly just a real quick rant about last week's episode. I mean, it's this series is limping to the end. Grant's done. Everybody's done. Not that it was a bad episode as far as it's in and of itself, but it was just really, Eric Wallace is just taking, I just wanted to say this feels like he's taking a big dump on the original Team Flash, because, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the episode, don't stop here. If you have watched the episode, you know that, we learned that Caitlin Snow died off screen, and, they create a new Kiyomi, I believe the new character that Danielle Panabaker is playing now. It's a variant of Caitlin and Frost, and like I said, it was just really off-putting and really felt disrespectful to people who have like been so invested with this show. But like you were saying in the pre-show, they've and we've talked about this before. They've really never figured out what to do with Caitlin to begin with. And this was like the final, like, nail in that, where they just kill her off screen, and it doesn't, unless they're planning on surprising us at the end, it doesn't seem like Carlos is coming back, and, unless he's pulling an Andrew Garfield, which is possible, but yeah, it just feels like the original triumph, the original trinity of the show is just not even being properly sent off, as the series comes to a close. But we did get news that, Teddy Sears is returning as, Hunter Zolomon, and, of course, John Wesley Shipp will be back as Jay Garrick. And I guess
say that like it's good news. Like, yay, Hunter Zolomon is back. It's like, I don't know
if it's good news or not.
Was, like, waiting for him to come back.
Yeah. Well, I think it lends to, the more I think about it, and, we talked about this either here on the cast, or maybe just maybe Twitter DM conversation or something, that the way the season is structured, it just seems like it's the greatest hits and they're like bringing back all these characters. But I'm really thinking it's a lot of this time travel, and things are going to happen where, there'll be events that have happened throughout the last 8 years of the show.
Right.
And
the bad ones, right?
Yeah.
We're going to focus on the bad ones, because before the show, you were telling me you were pre-ranting about the Flash. Yeah. And I made the comment, have they ever done Caitlin good? Like, has the writers ever given her justice? And the moment I said that, I wanted to take it back, because immediately what flashed in my mind, if you're a Flash fan, you have to agree with me on this. the best episode that featured Caitlin is the one Kevin Smith directed in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't just about Caitlin, it was that was the closest. And I didn't read the comments, but from what I understand, that was the closest we ever got to the real Killer Frost, real Caitlin dynamic. Mm-hmm. So if you're wanting to view best hits and you're really mad about this week's or last week's episode, recommend go back and rewatch that, because you know, there was magic. They killed it, but there was magic at one point with this show.
Yep. So that's all I have to say about the show. But I it's the final season, and I just, given that clearly our relationship with that show and all, and how it was the thing that brought us together here, whenever moments like that happen, I just feel like I've got to just get on here and just air my grievances.
Yeah. No, it's you're experiencing hate watch right now. I experienced that during the last season of Arrow. Yeah. But it is what it is. Unfortunately, the one franchise I thought was protected is not anymore. Kinda. But so I kinda have heard bits and pieces about the Variety article that came out with Kevin Feige. Mm-hmm. And it included the announcement that the Marvels are being moved to even if it's not, we do know that the Marvels are being moved from June to November.
Yeah, July to November. Yeah.
July to November.
Yeah.
I knew it was a J month. So all I have to say in all of this, especially because we'll talk about Quantumania, boy, will we talk about it. But I just need to know one thing. When the fuck are we getting Loki season 2? I need that release date. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah. So to that, yeah, exactly. So we're surrounding the Marvels move. So I guess the Variety article, and I think there were a couple. It didn't reference the Marvels directly. The Marvels news, I think, dropped independent of that article, I believe, on Friday, with the new poster release and everything. But leading up to that, you are correct that Marvel is planning on dialing some things back. And that was one of the things that Feige did talk about there, and a couple other forums as well, where, the output has really, in some people's eyes, and I think, and I would agree with this, has really harmed the product in some regard. Maybe, some people are very excited having just a boatload of stuff just coming. I'm of the opposite side, where it's just like, it's taking the specialness away of it by just having too much out there at once and trying to keep up with everything.
I don't think that's what's happening. Yeah. I think it goes back to what we were talking about on A+ Opinions. I think the what we're seeing is the actual side effects of COVID. We're seeing how Disney Plus was a big thing. They put all of this work into these shows and into these products to get launched. They even dropped short films with I Am Groot and Werewolf by Night. But as a business, it didn't make them very much money. Their money is in the cinemas. Yeah. So I understand where you're coming from a viewer perspective, but I really think this all goes back to the business side of it, based on what was said in that article that we discussed about how at the end of the day, they're not seeing the returns that they thought or hoped they would. And so they have to go back to the formula which is pre-pandemic. Yeah. And see, a very good point. Yeah, and see if they can get back to that place where these movies were making billions of dollars. And I mean, Ant-Man did good.
Yeah.
And that just further proves we have to remember, guys, producers are businessmen.
Yep.
like yeah, quality sells, but I mean, there was this weird movie, I think it was called Venom. And it had a sequel because of how much money it grossed in cinemas. So I think at the end of the day, I'm just viewing all of this from the lens that it was made clear to us a few weeks ago. They were not making money off of Disney Plus the way they thought they would.
That's a very good point, and I'm glad you brought it back to that, because that at its core, that really is what it is, and because one of the things that Disney Plus has lost subscribers, which was the first time that's happened since the platform has been launched, and you're right. I mean, they're just not the revenue is in the cinema, not the streaming services. And I think they're making that adjustment to where I think the new calculus, from what I understand, as far as the equation moving forward, will be, I think, 3 movies and 2 TV shows. So one would be Loki season 2 this year, and then the other would be Secret Invasion.
And no known release dates on either of those, right?
As of this recording, that is correct.
Okay. Well, they can all screw themselves, because I need so as much as I fell asleep during Quantumania and thought that it was arguably one of the weaker written scripts in the MCU. And as much as I like Jonathan Majors, even he could barely save it for me. But I told you this, that I did not go back and rewatch the final episode of Loki season 1. I did after I watched Quantumania, and it took me all of 1 minute of dialogue to just be like, this is why I love this show so much, because the way that character, He Who Remains, his motivation, it's very similar to Kang that we get in Quantumania. It's very similar motivation. However, when he was talking, all I could think about was how it related to the journey that Loki goes on in that season. And that is what was missing from Quantumania. Like there's so many flaws in Quantumania and so many issues, but at the end of the day, I really don't like Scott fell flat for me. He and his family end up sucked in there, and then it's just about them getting out.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Christian Harloff do his spoiler review with Winston and Coy, and they also mentioned this, like, they could have done so much more in terms of Scott's loss of time.
Yeah.
And played into that. And say what you will about Phase 4 properties. We always go back to, at the end of the day, that phase was about loss. And so, despite all of the flaws in those TV shows or movies, if the writers did a good job expressing loss and grief, then there were some real strengths in it. And this one just, I was bored. And I will say, my last precursory review is that my theater was it wasn't full, but there was a decent amount of people, and literally 2 seats away from me, a little girl and her mom, a little girl who's primed for this stuff. Our theater was so quiet.
Yeah.
The entire movie. And that's why I told you I honestly would rank Love and Thunder above this, because I remember laughing during Love and Thunder. I laughed maybe twice.
Yeah. 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 Well, we missed, and I was talking to you about this last night. It was like I missed the gang, the Michael Pena and T.I. and Dash Moxon. Even though he did play the goo guy in the Quantum Realm, but as far as voicing that character, but
I would call him the whole guy, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, the holes guy. Yeah, but I agree with most of your points about the film. I one of the flaws I did find in it was that Scott didn't have much growth,
right?
Either, and they touch on it at the end, and I don't want to, and we'll get into more detail earlier, but I mean, just bigger overarching theme. It seems that the Scott Lang that we met at the beginning of the film is still the same Scott, but just asking a few questions at the end. But there was they could have mined so many more deeper things in there, especially given Cassie and like you said, the loss of time and all. But overall, I mean, I just basically rated this one down as a good popcorn film.
I wouldn't give it that. I honestly wouldn't.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I know. I was just, I mean, that's just my take.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I did like it, and as I mentioned to you before, and I'll mention it here for listeners, I did like it better than Thor: Love and Thunder. I think anyone who listened to me last summer knows that Sarah had to pull me back from the ledge because I was not in a good spot with that film, with the MCU.
Yeah.
But yeah. But this one, it was okay. I thought the second act was the strongest act of the film. The third act had the Marvel flaw. I know you tweeted one flaw, which was it seemed like too much was given away in the trailers, but that's not the one that bothered me.
Can I explain that tweet?
Yeah.
Because I think it was taken out of context, and this is why I hardly ever tweet things. I just retweet. But so you guys know me. I try to avoid trailers as much as possible. And yes, we did, because Will forces me every now and then to watch the trailers. So I forgot about the trailer, and then I watched the movie, and then I was on Twitter and I saw the trailer and I thought to myself, oh my God, so many scenes from the third act.
Yeah.
Dear Lord. Like, I didn't have an issue watching the movie and telling myself,
okay,
like, oh, I'm waiting for this to happen, because I honestly forgot. I was in my mind writing the movie, and that's where when I can predict a joke, it's not funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just not funny. So, yeah, that was what I was going for. I just think marketing screws over these products so often. But anyway, what was the flaw you were going on? I have another one.
Yeah, and we may have the same. It may be the same one. It was the cookie cutter nature of the third act. I think. I just felt like all you did was with the final battle. It's just like, didn't I just watch this in Wakanda Forever? And every other MCU film, and I think it's just getting too formulaic. And I'll go whenever we get deeper into when we really flesh out our spoiler review here. But heck, I'll just mention it now. I mean, I wish the fight between Kang and Scott, the ferocity, that to me should have been the focus at the end. And there's things they could have done with it to make it better.
Which fight? Because I feel like they fought 3 times.
The final one where Scott finally actually uses the Pym devices to trap. Yeah.
The teaser for Creed 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. My whole issue with that scene was like, I've seen Creed 3 trailers. You're not going to tell me that Jonathan Majors in a fist fight can get beaten by Paul Rudd. Like,
yeah.
He's suspending his belief.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, it just they just need to figure out. I mean, I know with these films, with in all these films in the genre, you want the big spectacle at the end, but sometimes less is more. And I just felt like it just felt too herky jerky, and it just felt repetitive, and it just felt like, seen this before. You're taking me out of the film.
Right. Absolutely. And I think why this one rubbed me such a wrong way is because there's a moment where suddenly you're just like, whoa, oh, he's going to be trapped there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They're going to be trapped there. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. No. Because Cassie, she built this.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they did get lost in Quantumania, the quantum zone, because Cassie is apparently another genius, which, why are all these kids geniuses? On me.
Yeah. They're all Wesley Crushers.
Yeah, so she didn't realize, she turned it on, but then they screwed up turning it off, got stuck there, and then as soon as she's out, within 5 minutes, she can turn it right back on and pull them back out. But I want to touch on something you were getting at, and I think I might have interrupted. But so he used the Pym particles to trap Kang, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so what is with every reviewer being like, Kang got beaten by ants? Okay, Kang did not get beaten by ants. Because Kang has 6,000 lives in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a fist fight, and then even then he's not, and that's why I feel I like that last bit of dialogue where he is questioning. Like, you're not supposed to walk out of the movie thinking, like, even that version of the character we're never going to see again, because he's clearly still alive, and they figured out a loophole. In the most, to your point, stereotypical, I've seen this all before, this is formulaic, it's stupid, there's nothing original about this.
Yeah.
So it's just...
And like I said, I mean, it was 2 hours and 5 minutes of it was just a good popcorn film.
I agree.
Yeah, I know you disagree, but I mean, I guess.
It depends on what you define as a popcorn film, because for me, love, Thor, and fun, like, I think that's a popcorn film. I did not have as many. I was not as angry about the writing of that movie as I am about this movie, because I felt like throughout it, there's these scattered moments of potential.
Yeah.
And then they swerve and go back to no. And you said it right off the get-go, like there was no growth with Scott. Like what was his hero's arc? Like, there was nothing. And then we haven't even talked about the whole Wasp of the situation, which I didn't mind that they didn't use Evangelina Lilly as much. I have issues, but I do have issues with Michelle Pfeiffer, and only because she was great in all of the flashback scenes. Even in present day, when you can tell there's something weighing on her. But when it comes to like the 45-hour marker, and she still has yet to mention the word Kang. Yeah. Like, dear Lord. And honestly, the biggest flaw in this movie is, I mean, I'm sure there's like Vegas bets going on right now, but there's a child, right? And it's half her and half Kang, right? There's a child.
See, no, I don't think so. I think Yeah, I read I read their relationship is strictly professional, platonic, and
they were there for ages.
yeah, but she hooked up with Bill Murray's character.
After
A woman has needs, I know, and Hank has his needs, but
after that was post her finding out who he really was. They still had ages together working on that ship.
I know, but I never got that vibe from them.
It's just weird how, I mean, I get he like keeps his promises, but even when he does capture her, and maybe this is why people also had issues with Kang and just, is he ruthless or is he not? He wants to still take her, like, her with him in this weird way. I don't know. There was just this, and I'm not saying, I'm sure there isn't. You guys know me. I love to poke and just allude to things that probably because where is he? But also, sorry, I'm gonna move off of that point. Because Will's no fun about it. But
sorry. Sorry, I didn't go down the shipping lane with you.
Something that bothered me through, I want to say, 75% of this movie. This is not Scott's first time in the quantum zone.
Yeah. But
I know time moves differently, and he was only there for 5 years. She was there for 30 years. Still, and math is hard, but it just still feels a bit odd how, like, he never even talked about, like, his experience. I don't know. It felt off.
Well, maybe he did, but that ended up on the editing floor because, I mean, because he kept talking about that, all his other stuff in that damn book.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking about it. I was thinking about how we watched. We had She-Hulk last year. You hated it. Right. I thought it was okay. Had its strengths and weaknesses. And now we're seeing Ant-Man. And I'll be honest, Ant-Man's never been, like, the Ant-Man films, I have never been like, oh my God, I can't wait to rewatch it. I've watched them all, forgotten about them all. But
for me,
he works so well as part of the Avengers ensemble. In the Avengers movies, he works. The first 2 episodes of She-Hulk work because you had Hulk there with her. So what I'm getting at is, I think what we're seeing and finally recognizing with Ant-Man is that there are characters who can stand alone for a few movies and maybe sprinkle in a few supporting characters. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But it's just that their pathos, their trajectory is worth explaining independently outside of the main group. But then there's these other characters who are better as supporting and don't really have that pathos that can uphold a movie, much less a movie that's going to fully introduce your main bad guy. But I think, that's just something that came to me earlier today.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'll agree with you on that point. I think Scott is. I mean, I will say I've rewatched the Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man, Ant-Man 2. It hasn't held up well for me at all. The first one I do enjoy. But I think the things as far as the second one, I like a lot things as far as the supporting characters in it. But the whole story just kind of falls apart with Ghost and Bill Foster and some of the choices that were made there in that film. But with this one, see, I think I just felt like it was just very incomplete. There was no, we had 3 leads. We had Scott, we had Janet, and we had Kang. We had, and the issue I have with Scott's story is, like I said, I just didn't feel like there was a arc of growth in him. I felt, especially him, because they could have used Scott and Cassie's relationship. They could have really gotten a lot deeper in that. How Scott, being an Avenger, how being away, how how he made his mistakes and stuff, and they touched on it some with her getting arrested and getting put in jail, not because she was like trying to be a thief or anything, but she was trying to do good in the world because clearly Scott, so Scott has influenced her in that regard. Like, there are bigger things to be concerned about. But I don't know. It just didn't seem to be a very cohesive,
there was no focus.
thing. Yeah.
There was no focus because you have Ant-Man and here's your, character, but you kind of have Cassie who ends up sparking this whole adventure into Quantum Zone. And he's just like, my life is perfect right now. And and see, even that setup, it's incomplete because there's not that moment of I didn't want, I don't know. It's just a weird thing. Like his story is incomplete. Janet, I already mentioned my issue with her story and how there were a lot of good parts, but then there's this part where you're really just like, for the love of God, because if we have to spend one more scene where you refuse to tell Hope and Hank what happened. Yeah. Oh my God. And even Kang. So Jonathan Majors, I love Jonathan Majors. Okay, we all know this. This is like not new.
Yeah.
I like all of his scenes in the flashback. Even in the third act, he's good. The part that upsets me the most is the Council of the Council of Kings. And there's the CGI aspect of it that's just bad, but it just felt so cringy the way they were dressed. It just felt so cringy, and there wasn't anything ominous. I did, however, as soon as I fixated on that, I did pay attention a little bit more onto what they were saying, and I think it's interesting, the choice of words. Granted, this movie has set me up to only let me down time and time again, but for some reason, I want to believe that there can be some good preserved from this shit show. I find it interesting that they say the exiled one is now gone, because in a way, he who remains was also exiled. He exiled himself in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just and then they show the time stream and the what do the breaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, intrusions. I guess.
Yeah, which just makes me think more. Oh, they're talking about He Who Remains. They have to be talking about He Who Remains because honestly, if they were talking about Khan or Kang, we really didn't see that much bad he can do with time. Yeah, he destroyed a few things, but really Janet saw that. We didn't really see it. So I found it, and then I think more about what Kang said about why he did what he did, in the sense that his variants play with time like children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we get the scene in the Coliseum where everybody's going wild because look, dear Lord, calm down.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my head just I really want to watch Loki season 2.
Well, yeah. Before we get to the second, I do want to just talk a little bit about the Council of Kings, because I think it, I know it, to your point about He Who Remains and the Council. So, it seems that whenever that scene first got to it, I also went there as well as my thought that they were talking about him, that variant, who is actually, was a variant that was created unique for Loki, for that show. And his whole goal of, being the head of the TVA and all that. And we see, when we see the end of Loki, we see the, I guess, Chronopolis, I think. And so, I think Kang the Conqueror. So I think he's the exile because I guess Immortus, who is like was the person who summoned all of the Kang, all of the people to the council. He's sort of the de facto leader of all these Kangs, and realizes that, because, and to your point, Kang the Conqueror is, he looks at these other variants as just children, just kind of playing around with things, whereas he really wants to, be the boss and run the show. So, so Immortus, and then the other two, as far as, the Tut, Kang, and I guess there's some discussions about whether or not the third one was either, I guess, Scarlet Centurion or Iron Lad. But in any event, their motivations are, we got to stop the Conqueror here, because if we don't, he's going to really fuck things up and we're all going to lose. So
he was wiping out their timelines, on his own. And so that's why they quote unquote exiled him. I totally understood that in the movie. Yeah. My thing though is, they already exiled him. Why does it matter if he's now dead?
Because he's not dead. That's just it. They're all kings, but they're all kings. So they're all taught, they all can see past, present, future. So they know, to your point that you were making earlier, when these people were saying that the ants, that he got, killed and overpowered by the ants. They know that he is trapped in that realm, in that quantum, in that realm. So it's just a matter of someone else stumbling across him in the quantum realm, freeing him, so that he can come back and
but no,
continue.
You're not convincing me, because they had that same threat when they locked him in the quantum zone to begin with.
Right, but and they realized that they recognized that he was able to escape from that once, so he can do it again. So they've got to figure out a way to
escaped. He came close to escaping, but he never actually escaped. What I understood from it is they were saying the exiled one is gone, as in dead. And that means that they, aka the Avengers, have gotten too close to time itself. And so I'm holding firm on my opinion that they have to be talking about He Who Remains, because you exiled him once, and then he gets re-exiled by someone else, and now you're mad. It doesn't make any sense.
But I thought, but when Sylvie killed He Who Remains, I thought that unleashed all. I mean, I thought that was what caused all the chaos in the various timelines.
Right, absolutely. But they had already exiled Kang, from what I understand, before that.
Yeah.
So I took it as as they were talking about that is a post-credit scene of Loki, more or less, rather than Ant-Man, because that event more signifies, and he even tells them, like, I'll see you soon, as in my variants are going to come and start to fight you guys, because now the protection is gone.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I was getting at is, I can see how people viewing Ant-Man would watch that credit scene and feel like, because they say the exiled one, and Kang talks about being exiled, but it doesn't seem like, yeah, he's a threat to them, but him dying or being like further exiled, that doesn't seem like something that would suddenly, all of the Kangs would be like, now is our time. It's more when He Who Remains died.
Okay. Okay. I see your point. I see it.
Ah, man.
Yeah.
There's got to be a love child, though. Like, are you telling me? Like,
yeah.
Just really?
Is he who remains?
Yeah. Well. Oh, man. Sylvie. All right. So we are done bickering about Quantumania. And we have time to talk about, I don't know if I have energy, but we do have time to talk about The Last of Us episode 6. Okay. Welcome to winter. Will, where you want to start?
Oh, let's start from the beginning. Because the episode, we're 3 months after the events that we saw in Kansas City. And I think it was important for them to start there. Mainly just to like recognize that, for two things. One, to be respectful of what we just all went through. But two, to show that Joel and Ellie have moved on in their journey. And while they're not in mourning at that particular point anymore, as far as just, the suddenness of what had just transpired 3 months earlier, is, still clear, clearly is still impacting them. And, but the one thing I did like about the episode, when they did come across the cabin, and the older couple, it definitely added some needed levity to the show. And whenever Joel enters the cabin with the man, and the husband and wife dynamic and stuff, and it's clear these folks have been there since before the world ended. So so they've been off the grid, and then there's their interactions and stuff, and just really setting up various things as far as like don't go west and this and all. I felt that, again, like I said, I needed to laugh after like getting broken last week. And that scene, just to sort of start things out, really was something that I think collectively as viewers, we needed.
Yeah. I agree. I probably enjoyed, had the most laughs when Ellie, Tommy, Maria, and Joel sit down for dinner.
Yeah, that's you. Yeah, and those are some more too. Yeah.
I just you want to start at the beginning. I just want to get right into the guts of this episode, because my big epiphany, well, not even epiphany, but my big takeaway from this episode is finally, Pedro's been doing great, but he definitely elevated his game in this episode, to match what Bella's been giving. And there's a few scenes in particular. I mean, one, you have the monologue about where he's trying to convince Tommy to go with Ellie in his place because he can't. And just the emotional, and Pedro Pascal, I loved you the moment you did a monologue on Game of Thrones. And I feel like Mandalorian just needs more monologues from Mando. I mean, to elevate that show, because there's something about the way that because I will, like, I have rewatched his monologue to Tyrion in season 4 of Game of Thrones, and it's monologue when he says, "I'll be your champion," so many times. It's a very different monologue than the one he delivers as Joel. But he emutes so much, like, feelings about what he's saying. Oh my God. Like, there's that scene. And then, of course, the scene where I know Twitter's been going crazy about it because of just how insane the cutscene comparison to the actual scene itself in the show between Ellie and Joel, when Ellie confronts him and is like, about loss and about, you're leaving me, you can't do this, I'm not gonna like it, and him shutting her down. And it's weird how I both forgot about that scene, but in that moment I was remembering so much about that scene.
Yeah.
It's uncanny how sometimes this game, even though I've never played it, but I've watched and I've read so many, I've listened to so many interviews. I can't believe how much, from my vague understanding and love of the story, how much it still resurfaces through watching it now. It's pretty crazy. And that was like 2 years ago when I fell down, 3 years ago when I fell down that rabbit hole. So, yeah.
Yeah. And just imagine if you had played the game, I mean, how much deeper you would probably be blown away by how they've taken some very pivotal moments, and have recreated them and expanded on them and making them even deeper in a different medium, in live action. But I mean, and I saw the cutscene, and it is powerful, even without the context of seeing the live action version. And you're right, whenever you see the two of them together, and I know the showrunners, talked about how it's mostly, other than just a few words here and there, that it's mostly word for word as far as how it was cut, but also back to your point about Pedro and his performance, because again, it's his face and how he just emotes and delivers those lines, and just how broken Joel is from Sarah's death, and how that impacts him now, where with, like, for example, in the he starts to have the panic attacks because different motivations. Ellie's biggest fear is being left alone. Joel's biggest fear is failing another child, even though it's not his child. But I mean, but as we have gone on with him on this journey, that father-daughter relationship is there now, and even if it's unspoken, but it's there. And you see the manifestation of that in this episode with the panic attacks. And then when he's talking to Tommy about, first, when he and Tommy are first having a conversation, he was having to come to grips that, I'm not protecting Tommy anymore. And then later, when he does finally break down and confide to him, it's like, look, I'm afraid that I'm going to fail, and I need for you to do this for me. All those moments, just like, you're right. I mean, this was the episode where Pedro really did step. I mean, he's been great all season, but this one was like next level.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because you brought up the podcast after show podcast, and I was listening to it not too long ago. But here's another crazy thing: is I've heard Neil Druckmann talk about The Last of Us 2, so many times in different interviews. Troy Baker, same thing. I've listened to Troy Baker have Nolan North, who voices a character you haven't met yet, but will soon. But play through the game. And while they were talking about this episode in particular, I had the most flashbacks to those interviews and that gameplay, because they talked about a lot of the behind the scenes moments of the game itself, including the fact that Ellie is obsessed with space because of Ashley Johnson. And Joel is a singer because of Troy Baker. So, but like these are things I've forgotten, but the moment they said it, I was like right back. I'm like, oh yeah, I do know that. I do remember them talking about that. Or how this scene, the quote unquote, but almost betrayal scene between the two of them, the fight that occurs when she pushes him, that was something that happened, like after a lot of tries at getting the scene that Ashley just did. So, right. and you have to, like, listeners and viewers have to remember that these actors were told not to watch the game. So the fact, so even if they haven't watched it, and now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the director is kind of telling them like some things, but at the same time, it's really uncanny how similar everything is, to the way it was portrayed, especially in these very key moments. So, but there's a lot of emotional trauma in this episode.
There is. It's different. It's not as direct as it was in, as far as the visually as it was with Sam and Henry and what we experienced. But yeah, I mean, there definitely is that, a lot of just heavy emotion, all throughout. And as we, from the moment, as Joel and Ellie are all, when they first get to Jackson, and the tension of when the folks from the town come out and first see them, and whenever they're trying to figure out whether or not they're infected or not, and and we're all like, oh gosh, when the dog like sniffs Joel and then goes to sniffs Ellie, and we're all like sitting at the edge of our seat, even though we obviously intellectually we know that they're going to make it, but it's still just like, how did they get out of that situation?
Right. Well, they did a very good job, and it's kind of a disorienting scene for me, because I remember watching it and there was so much tension. And the more I think about it, the more I think that they got the tension, because yes, as a viewer, that Ellie's going to be fine. But as a viewer who's viewing the scene through Joel's eyes, there's that fear, that anxiety, that it didn't dawn on me that they were doing until he brings it up with his conversation with Tommy.
Yep.
Like it didn't, it just was like, oh, okay, we're going to get through this, but okay, this is pretty intense. It didn't resonate as much. And that's something I really appreciate a lot about this episode and how it's structured and written. Like Quantumania, is that there was so much subtleness in a lot, like the first half hour of this, that when the characters, these two characters who, they speak, but they mainly grunt.
Yeah.
They mainly like shoot things. They're quiet people, but when they spill their guts out about what's really going on in their minds, you understand so much more about what was going on. Like I was kind of thrown off with the panic attacks at first. I was like, oh, okay, why is this happening? And then when he breaks down, and then also listening to the showrunners talk about it, I'm like, yeah, this makes total sense why he would be having them. It's and not why he would be having them. Why now?
Right.
You know, because I think there's sometimes we forget, like, that's just a gimmick for the episode, but when there's an intention behind characters developing certain habits, that is a part of their story, then like timing is everything, and it's not just to make the episode unique. This is the one where Joel has panic attacks. No, this is the one where, like, he's not fighting the infected right now, but he might as well be, because for him, this is his climactic moment where, and it really does end in that terrifying moment where, did he fail? Ellie's alone. Ellie's stranded now. And yeah, we know logically they're going to make it out somehow, but how that happens, still has yet to be shown. And I love the song at the end, and yeah, it's one of the showrunners' daughters singing that. But I just love how,
but also,
like, that final was framed too. It's very beautiful.
Yeah. And it was a bookend too, because that same song was the song that was playing at the end of the first episode.
Yeah. I knew it sounded familiar. I couldn't put my finger on why, but yeah.
So it was a cover at the Depeche Mode song. So, but again, it's just like, that's the genius of this show, is that all these little moments, they come back to you, when when you don't expect it, or when it needs to frame, like you said, how they framed Joel and Ellie. Their two biggest fears they have to confront that at the very end of that episode. Because well, it happened. Yeah, I know. By my point, I know, but they structured it in a way that, they brought it, they teased it along throughout, not teased it. Things happen throughout, from,
like, from, talk about it, and then it happens.
They talk about it when it happened, Joel, from Joel falling asleep on the watch after, lecturing her about, no, I got the watch, I'll stay, and so, and he falls there, and then something else happened. He falls there. He has panic attacks. I mean, it's just like you said, the scene when they get to Jackson, looking through it through Joel's eyes, he's like, I failed again. So it's just,
but see, I don't know if he thought he failed when they got to Jackson. Yeah, in that moment when he was
in the moment.
Yeah. And it's not even to Jackson, it's the outskirts of Jackson. Because what I keep thinking about is how, looking at this episode, there's a lot of hope in it too.
Yeah, there is.
But it's like Joel and Ellie can't see it. They don't want to see it. They don't, or maybe seeing and embracing the hope is what really freaks them both out. Because they haven't had that yet. Maybe Ellie has it to an extent because she has Joel, but it's just this weird thing of, like, oh my God, there is, you can survive outside of the QZ. And be like I like how we went from a two people doing just fine, loving their life the way it is, surviving everything, to a community in Jackson. And that's why I think it's a smart choice to interview Jackson the way that they did in this episode. But this community, and also we start this show post outbreak day with like Joel's got his story is finding his brother. Ellie's story is get into the Fireflies so they can cure the world. Well, Joel's story in a way ends in this episode because he found his brother, and that's why I love the moment when he sees Tom and he screams, and it's so like oh my god, it's so beautiful. It's such a weird moment of like, I'm here to save you, but you're doing just fine. You're doing better than me.
Yep.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he like this journey he's been on for 4 months. I know it's been 3 months, but there's time before Kansas City. So that now you're at the end of your road and it's just like this, Tommy!
Yep.
But and maybe it's because, he's gotten a moment of like, he's found the person he was looking for, his family, his kin. Ironically, this episode is called Kin. And yet he knows in the back of his mind, he has to deliver this girl now. Like, he has to make sure she gets to where she was wanting to go. And so it's not over. Like, which, I would have a panic attack. Like, you're running a marathon and you reach the finish line and then they tell you, but we moved it. So technically you have to go there. You're like, but I just ran. Yeah.
And that's what happened. I mean, because, they go down I-25 or whatever, thinking that they're going to get to this university, and you're right. And then they get there and then realize like, oh, this place is abandoned. And then we find the map of, with, going to various destinations, there in Central and West Coast. And, which, and so you're right. I mean, it's just like, oh gosh, we thought we thought we were here at the end of the race, and here we got more, we got more to go to. And then, but then like you said, I mean, Tommy and Maria, basically like do have a good life now. And life and the world can function in this, in this new post-apocalyptic world. And so you do have that hopefulness that like, once Ellie, if we can find the Fireflies, and they are able to fashion a cure to this thing, we can we can go back to maybe not how things used to be, but we see glimpses of like normalcy that earlier in the season, Frank was trying to do with Bill and their little enclave.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, again, this series is just, it's just chef's kiss every week. I mean,
it's very well paced. I know 2 weeks ago I had some concerns. I'm like, I don't know if they're going to make it in time to wrap up the first game, but I told you after watching this episode, I'm like, no, they're making excellent pace. And we're actually next week, if it's the Left Behind episode, I don't know that much about Left Behind. I know bits and pieces. But I'm excited to see that. But yeah, we're on track, to wrap up the game with this first season, which Will's just like, thank God, because I need to go
I gotta go watch it all now. I could finish up the video that
I will tell you guys, like, forewarned, Last of Us season 2 spoilers are out there, and you don't want things to be spoiled with that. No, but you're absolutely right. Like, this show, for it to be a show that started in January, thank God. It's starting off my year right. Haven't been disappointed in an episode. I'm in awe of this show. I have great love for it. And I mean, the only sad thing is that just means all other shows this year will be compared against it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we grade on a curve, and they have, like,
but
it's like a job interview. It's like, if the first person comes, either sometimes that first interview, the first comes in and they just knock it out of the park. And then everybody else, you do measure everyone else from, based off of that person. And I feel like so far, we're still only in February, but, this is to show that, whenever we move forward with other things this year, I mean, I'm going to be like, well, in The Last of Us, it was, it's kind of like how we did last year with House of the Dragon.
Yeah. Well, some of us then went on to an Andor show and was like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. Well, man, yeah. And I stand by that.
And Peacemaker, I mean, that's the show that really we're comparing everything. But yeah, I know good things are come, because I think we're going to get another season of The Boys this year. We're going to get Succession this year. Yep. We're going to get Loki season 2.
At some point.
Season 2. I'm worried about my expectations for Loki season 2, and probably some more surprises. You never know. HBO, I hope you're making money.
Yeah. I know other parts of Warner are cutting things, but you notice they never, as far as HBO, you don't hear about the scripted division of HBO having any cuts. Everywhere else, yes, but not HBO.
All right. On that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will M. Polk on Twitter, WILLMPOLK.
You can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Cena Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and visit our website, www.cenanerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.